Welcome to another episode of Sports After Dark, episode 14. Wow, we have really done so many episodes of this show. It's great to be back with you guys for another week. I'm David, joined by Kayla, who's not feeling too well, but she sounds better.
I do. I don't really sound like I smoke a pack of cigarettes a day anymore, just half a pack.
Oh my gosh! Hey, look, we have so much to talk about this week. So much going on in the sports world. Obviously, we're at the halfway. Oh no, we're beyond the halfway point of college football right now. We're pretty much on the home stretch. Last 5 games of the regular season, and then NFL is approaching almost the halfway point. It's kind of crazy to think about. Once we get into the third, fourth week of October, it's like the halfway point. But yeah, guys, football season took a long time to come, and it's just like that. It's almost over. But before we get to all that, we gotta talk about the elephant in the room. I mean, we kind of mentioned it, but you have not been feeling good lately. Like, what's going on with you these days?
Yeah, so I guess 2 weeks ago, I was having like a sore throat, and I was like, okay, I probably have the common cold. I went to an urgent care. Usually I don't like those, but when your doctor's office is like on a 2-month wait list, like you just do what you gotta do. And they've correctly diagnosed me the last couple times, so we're on better terms. But they were like, oh yeah, you have an ear infection, which is true. So I started taking amoxicillin for that, and then I had an allergic reaction to amoxicillin, which made my face blow up. You can't see it because I've been working overtime to make sure that I don't look like I'm a burn victim. But I then went back because I wasn't feeling well that weekend following that diagnosis and what I thought was the allergic reaction. So I went back and they were like, your lungs sound kind of crowded. Let's do an x-ray. Let's rule out strep and COVID, pneumonia, all that stuff. I was like, whatever, I'm here. And went in to get the x-ray. Doctor came back in the room, it was like, let's look at this together. And I was like, okay. And he goes, what is in this x-ray that doesn't belong? And my entire left lung was just white. So I had pneumonia and fluid all built up. He was like, yeah, you have pneumonia. And I was like, great. So I was on an antibiotic for that. I have not worked a full week of work in like 3 weeks, and finished my antibiotic yesterday, but he said I could still have some symptoms for the next 3 weeks. So come on, November.
I'm trying to tell you, look, when you first told me that you had pneumonia, I was like, I don't know how this live is going to go. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be like, we're going to have Kayla in bed in like a full body cast today. And, you're going to be doing, your boyfriend's going to be holding the mic. Like, is everything okay? I didn't know how this is going to work out, but we're happy that you're okay. You've been battling it through. It's definitely like, this is a brisk change in weather. Like, I was going to work this morning, and I think it got down to like 49, 50 degrees. It was like very brisk outside. It felt, I was like, oh, it's going to be a cold winter. I don't think we're going to get much snow up here, but I do think it's going to be cold. Maybe because of the fact that we had summer, but I want to say like, probably in August, it felt like it was like 80 degrees for like 4 weeks. So I just want to say that was like summer's subtle way of like going away. Right. So, we're going to see kind of what this season plays out, but definitely take care of yourself. Hopefully you feel better. We'll check back. We're going to put you on the IR list right now. And, we're going to play it back
up. Retro that date to like October 1, because your girl has been hurting.
That is insane. No, I understand that. Well, we may not have people in the sports world that are sick, but they're going to be sitting on the couch for extended amount of time, and that kind of gets us into not really much of my wellness check, but more so for James Franklin. Obviously, he was the Penn State coach. He was there for a number of years. I want to say he was there for like 12 or 15 seasons or something like that. So I wrote a couple of notes to myself because I feel like you have to paint the picture with this one because this has been a talker for the last 3 days. Everybody kind of saw the writing on the wall when he lost to Northwestern. I think that was kind of the last, you lose to UCLA, you have championship aspirations, you don't quite meet that. This is kind of, what happened. Everybody said it was either a championship or bust year for Franklin. But to set the scene for you, they made, James Franklin, obviously they had championship aspirations. You returned Drew Aller, who was supposed to be near the top of the Big Ten in terms of production. Also, he's considered kind of a first round quarterback. We'll see. That's yet to be seen, but he got injured in the game in Northwestern and it was all downhill from there. But also in the offseason, they acquired defensive coordinator Jim Knowles. For those he was the defensive coordinator for the national championship winning Ohio State team. People were kind of mixed. Jim Knowles is a mixed bag. People kind of felt like in the Michigan game, he gave up some too many big plays. But for the most part, you can't really say the defense, was the reason why Ohio State lost those games. But, you get a couple of big plays here and there. That was, of course, DC's are always going to take the hit, but you get the point. They had a lot of acquisitions this offseason, and the return of Drew Aller, and a good recruiting class. They had expectations to go to a natty this year, and when you lose to UCLA first and Oregon and then Northwestern, and you're 3-3 on the season, I mean, your season's pretty much done from going to the playoffs. Just a couple of stats about Franklin's career. He had 29 losses versus 29 top 25 teams. As a top 10 team, he had 19 losses. Versus the top 10, he had 21 losses, and versus top 10 matchups, he had 12 losses. So he was not really the best coach when it came to the big games. And unfortunately, it wasn't the big game it was kind of the big game because he lost to Oregon in overtime, but then it just kind of got bad from there, and it just never got better for him. And unfortunately, he's gone from the program. So I saw their short list. They're saying that Matt Rule from Nebraska could be a front runner for the job. Matt Rule was a player. I think he was a player for Penn State way back when. So that would be interesting. But I do think that just Penn State just needs somebody to come in that really needs to be a splash name. They need recruits in the worst way. You're in a conference with Ohio State, Oregon, and Michigan, who continuously are in the top 10. This is not to say Penn State was not a top 10 recruiting team, but you need a name that's really going to put some energy back into that program. I really do think that Penn State is a sleeping giant. Like I do think if they get the right person in there, they can really be a serious contender. But this is one of those situations where you can't afford to mess it up. Like you can't bring somebody in from a smaller program that had 1 or 2 years of success, and you're like, oh, they're the next up and coming, thing. This has to be a sure thing for Penn State. But you want to get someone that's relatable to the players nowadays. I think Kayla, another point I'll bring up, they just lost their top recruit. Their running back coming in for the next class. He decommitted from Penn State after James Franklin was fired. So you want to bring somebody in here that can give, the next wave of Penn State Nittany Lions hope, and that you don't lose a good recruiting class, because we know just as anything, like, the portal is cool, but you got to develop players too. And if you want to stay on top for a long time, those high school players really matter, especially those 4- and 5-star players that can help your program either right away or 2 years or 3 years from now. So, like I said, I think the writing was on the wall with James Franklin. It's unfortunate, but it's kind of sad because you could tell he really loved Penn State, but he just was not winning against the upper echelon of teams. And when you're trying to win a national championship and you bring a staff in that can do that on paper, you just can't lose against Northwestern. You can't lose against UCLA. Can't happen.
Yeah, I think that was a really good analysis. There's a lot to unpack here. I think, you highlighted it with when they lost the whiteout game at home to Oregon, who's coming cross country. It's not a knock on Oregon, but they had a lot of things working against them and they let that game slip away. And then, sure, you could argue that UCLA is winless. They have nothing to lose. They can just pull out all the stops. But Penn State went from being number 11 and ranked to losing to Oregon at home and then a winless UCLA team. And I think that's when everybody's radar went up like, what's not clicking here that allowed this to happen? You go back and look at, the play calls in that game, either in short distance or, mid distance, and then you're drawing up a play that is a pass behind the line of scrimmage, or, you're not taking the lanes or going on your reads that give you a better chance to sustain a first down or chunk yardage. And you're like, okay, well, maybe that was a fluke. Like maybe UCLA showing you something that they had nothing to lose for again. But then when you lose at home by a point to Northwestern, you were leading in that game again, like failure to hold leads, failure to put games away that you should win. It just seemed like the failures were accumulating. And, I would think that Penn State, entered the season in a championship or bust mentality. Like they were close to the national championship last year, losing to Notre Dame. And they have access to all of these players. You're talking about losing a recruit, and that's probably due in fact to the stability of Franklin being gone now. Like they don't have the stability, but they did for a decade plus. But they can get people from the Northeast or the Midwest, even Mid-Atlantic. Like you're in a place where you can grab from all over the United States, and to have those losses, it just makes it even worse.
Yeah, no, it's actually crazy you just mentioned that last point. I think what's so harmful about this as well is the fact that in this portal era of the NCAA, your kids can just sit out and say, "Hey, I'm not gonna play the rest of the year and enter the portal because Coach Franklin got fired." So this could go from bad to ugly like really quickly. I think another thing is I want to look at the Allard situation, right? They didn't really recruit a true number 1 or 2 to help him this year. I don't think or either they didn't develop a wide receiver in that offense. They were a very run heavy team. They always had tight ends. They always have been known for that. They always have been known for running backs. I mean, Saquon Barkley came through that program, but I just felt like they never really developed an outside threat to kind of help their quarterback out. And when you're in the pocket that long, holding it, trying to make something happen, eventually, defenses can tee off on you. They can make things happen. And I just think they did him a disservice. They didn't really help him in his final year. I mean, you look at their offensive production. It was really just sketchy, to say the least, compared to what you expect Penn State to kind of be at this time and what they're trying to do. And you wouldn't, I think it's kind of shocking as a fan because coming in on paper, it looked good, right? But, it's got to pan out on the field. But we'll have to see kind of what Penn State chooses to do. I think ultimately it's going to come down to, whether they want to go for a recognizable name like a Matt Rule. And I know they named some other coaches. I think Arizona's coach was there. They had Indiana's coach on there. I don't think he's going to go anywhere anytime soon. I think he's building a legacy at Indiana, so I think he stays. But it's going to be interesting to see the direction that they go into. Did you have any other takes on this one?
I think it's just interesting that they're naming coaches already. I mean, I know we're halfway through the year, but it's not like Matt Rule at Nebraska, and my boyfriend's a huge Nebraska fan, so now I know a little bit more about the Cornhuskers, and I might want to, but don't tell him that. But, Matt Rule flamed out in Carolina. I think he's still being paid by the Panthers. He couldn't elevate his coaching success to a higher level, and I feel like the sample size for him at Nebraska, I mean, they've had to come back against teams like Maryland this past weekend. They were up They didn't allow the Terrapins to do anything in the first quarter, and then all of a sudden they found themselves down. Dylan Raiola threw 3 picks like that.
Mm-hmm.
His team is built all around, and they can come back, but like a successful coach, you don't have your teams continuously coming back.
Yeah.
And Indiana, no knock on them, but like they're a smaller school, and while they're accumulating these successful wins and statements, like it's not like he's been in the headlines or the school's been in the headlines for a while. And I know that UNLV's coach has been named, and
Dan Mullen.
And it's like, well, they're a smaller school, like their success, sure, but with the sample size, you can't go to Penn State and not know, strengths, weaknesses, what being on the national stage and scales will be. So I don't know. I don't like the candidates that have been named. I don't think that they can rise to the caliber of all that.
Listen, they better go get one of them offensive coordinators. Look, Mike McDaniels might need a job next year.
Bro, I don't care anymore.